The Orient Express is undoubtedly Europe's most famous train. For almost a century, this train was the most popular means of transportation for the wealthy of Europe and abroad. A line with a stirring history, passing by beautiful towns and splendid landscapes. A mysterious and exotic journey, not only since Agatha Christie put Detective Hercule Poirot to work on the Orient Express. Today's Orient Express also takes its passengers through a section of Europe, passing through 5 countries. Its final destination, Venice. Just like some 100 years ago, the departure point is London. Trafalgar Square, Big Ben, and numerous other famous edifices were also the setting for the starting point around 1900. That the Orient Express is famous is proved by the fact that no less than 6 feature films, 19 books, and even a musical composition were produced about it. In the numerous little bookshops of the English capital, time-worn paperbacks about the journey are for sale. This double-decker, symbol of London, is on its way to Victoria Station, the place where travelers prepare for departure. The beautiful station was also the departure point for the Orient Express around the end of the last century. On track 2, the locomotive meets the glistening carriages of the Orient Express. The diesel locomotive is cautiously maneuvered in front of the carriages. The idea of the cream and dark brown colored Pullman carriages originated in America. These hotels on wheels had the special feature that the seats could be converted to beds.
The very first one was in 1883, and that was from Paris through to Istanbul, but of course it was called Constantinople then. And that was organized by somebody called George Nagelmakers. It was the very first luxury train that there had been in the world. There are 2 trains. We have this lovely Pullman train here, which was originally part of the Golden Arrow. And there's another train on the continent, which is the wagon-lit cars. Well, it was very sad, really. The train gradually became less popular, and air travel took over, and it became uneconomic.
In 1977, the Express made its last journey, but not for long. The Orient Express got a new lease on life.
We gradually found the cars all over Europe, and some in England. And then we found centres for restoration. They'd done the experience, they'd done work of that kind before. And it took a long, long time. We started in 77 and didn't get it onto the rails until 82. And people were very excited and felt it was a very romantic project.
A romantic project indeed, but especially costly too. The train fanatic and wealthy American James Sherwood put millions into the restoration of the train. The result is evident. The super deluxe Orient Express now makes weekly journeys to Venice. The first part of the journey goes across the Channel to Paris. The Orient Express travels only briefly through the English landscape. The Pullman carriages, in which kings and queens once traveled, are beautifully restored. They radiate pure luxury and have typical English names like Lucille, Audrey, and Vera. After a short journey, the train arrives at Folkestone on the English coast. It is low tide when we arrive, and in the harbor the boats lie on dry land. Harbor Station is the terminal for the train, but not for the passengers. They board the hover-speed Sea Cat. Naturally, the baggage is transferred by personnel. In early days, the sea trip was quite an undertaking that lasted hours. Present-day clients of the Orient Express are ferried across the channel in a very short time.
At the moment, we're running at 36 knots, which is close to 60 kilometers per hour. Our crossing, about 40 minutes between the harbours, and total crossing time less than 1 hour.
It is possible that the future Orient Express will make use of the Channel Tunnel deep under the seabed.
Channel Tunnel will be very interesting. I think it will be very useful for traffic running through between the cities, but I think there will always be a lot of interest in people who wish to travel across the channel by sea. I think it's a far more exciting way of travelling rather than travelling underground in a box with no windows.
The hover-speed Sea Cat arrives in the French port of Boulogne. The new carriages stand ready. They are original wagon Lee carriages from 1919 and have been restored completely. The train personnel is ready with white gloves to transfer the luggage. The Orient Express continues its journey. From Boulogne, we go first to Amiens, about 50 kilometers eastward. A diesel engine pulls the carriages.
The train is pulled with a diesel engine from Boulogne to Amiens, which is just outside Paris, because there is no electric line on that sector. Then from Amiens to Venice, it's pulled with electrical engine.
On our way to the French capital, the sun gradually sets. Towards dark, we will arrive in Paris. Before the train reaches Paris, the passengers are served a sumptuous dinner. The meals are prepared by experienced cooks who do their work swaying with the rhythm of the train. Everything is prepared on the train except for the dessert. That comes from a patisserie, especially made to order for us. A chef on a train is unusual, but Maître Francois finds it no problem. Perhaps the time will come when I'll have a restaurant in Paris, but now I'm here. It's very interesting to do this. At dusk, the train arrives at Gare du Nord. In the early days, the British and French nobility met here. From this spot, they traveled further in the direction of southern Europe. Often travelers stop briefly in the City of Light to enjoy the French nightlife. A favorite place for tourists was then, just as now, the Place du Théâtre, behind the Sacré-Cœur. Here one finds a colorful gathering of tourists, painters, and musicians. While nightlife goes on in the heart of Paris, the Orient Express speeds on through the night. In the dark, the train travels through the French landscape on its way to Switzerland. Outside, there is little to see, but inside there is plenty of activity. The ladies and gentlemen have changed clothing for cocktails with romantic lighting and piano music. The party on wheels continues deep into the night while the train roars on toward Switzerland. Next morning, the train personnel are waiting to serve breakfast. In one's own compartment, of course. The beds in the compartment have been folded back. The passengers have no reason to complain for lack of sitting space. It almost goes without saying that the interior is totally luxurious. When breakfast is over and the passengers look out the window, they see they have arrived in Switzerland. The Orient Express has a short stopover to take on new supplies. This offers us the opportunity to make a short trip to Brienz in a local train. Giant mountains and deep lakes pass our eyes. It takes a little adjusting to this normal train after the luxury of the Orient Express. Brienz is a typical Swiss village, hemmed in between the Alps. The reason for the visit to this village, with its fine Swiss cottages, is a special woodcarving house. Swiss woodcarving is known worldwide. Here, every day, skilled tradespeople are busy carving out beautiful figures with greatest precision. Every figure is a piece of real craftsmanship.
The wood carving in Switzerland mainly started here in Brienz about 200 years ago. There was a man called Christian Fischer, which implemented the crafts to young people, and then the business was growing here in this area. First of all, you need a drawing of the piece you want to carve. Then you make probably a model in clay or in plastiline. Out of this model, you make a wooden model, and then according to the wooden model, you may make copies, and you carve then all the time according to the model. It is an old traditional method. We do it as they did it 100 and even more years ago, with the same tools, with the same methods, and we use almost the same raw materials.
The wooden works of art that are made here are exported the world over and find their place on many a mantelpiece. The Swiss train has arrived at the Interlaken East station. From here, many different trains go into the high mountains. Switzerland has a very extensive system of railways. with many small private lines.
We have more than 100 different companies that runs on different tracks. Roads were very bad in the last century, and they had to invent something to cross the Alps or to cross the rivers, and the railway was then the first medium. Therefore, we have in every small valley, we have those railways, and those railways are still private-owned railways.
At the station of Interlaken, passengers embark on a special trip. The train that is waiting leaves for the Jungfrau, one of the peaks of the Alps. The rail that leads to it goes higher than any other railroad in Europe.
I think it's still the most interesting railway. It was founded at the beginning of this century, and then it was thought that we would build up it right to the peak, which has more than 4,000 meters. They stopped it on Jungfrau Joch, and since that, that's just the main point where people from abroad come and want to visit this special spot there. It's in the eternal snow. In summer and winter there is snow, and the last part is completely in tunnel.
In Grindelwald, at the foot of the Jungfrau, the spectacular journey to unknown heights begins. After a wonderful trip, the train stops in Kleine Scheidegg against the Eigerberg. Here, the last part of the trip begins. We go around the mountain. Going through a tunnel on the north side, we move on to the Jungfrau. There we find Europe's highest train station at almost 3.5 kilometers. Hewn from the rocks, there is the underground station. We go up by a stairway, and there a breathtaking view awaits us. The top of the Jungfrau rises high above the clouds. Below, in the valley, the Orient Express continues its journey. The luxury train has started on the last leg of its journey to Venice. The route may not be as high, but it is no less beautiful. Traveling through the Alps, the passengers enjoy their lunch. Again, the luxury of the train is immediately apparent. The beautiful carriages are adorned with old-fashioned details.
Before the days of electricity, the steward before used to have to come along and put a little candle in there or a gas lamp, and obviously with a cover, and so the passengers could be able to see during the night time on there. This here is in the days when gentlemen used to wear pocket watches, and it used to be able to, they used to hang it up just here, and if they woke up in the night, obviously they could see what time it was, and it wouldn't damage any of the woodwork, and also wouldn't damage any of the back of the watch.
Meanwhile, the Orient Express has reached the Dolomite. We travel past Bolzano, Verona, and Padua. After a few hours, we see the water. We are approaching Venice. The Santa Lucia station is the end of the journey. Here, tens of thousands of tourists daily gape in admiration at the city in the water. The stairs at the exit of the station lead straight to the Canal Grande, where the gondolas dance in the water. Venice was once described as the greatest work of art ever created. While one may not agree, it would certainly be impossible to build the same sort of city now. Venice, built on 118 islets, has more than 400 bridges. Part of these islets are slowly sinking, threatening to drag beautiful buildings to the bottom of the sea. In a few years' time, flood barricades are to guard the lagoon city against calamity. No fewer than 100 palaces, churches, and monumental bridges can be admired. The most famous spot in the city is the Piazza San Marco, with the San Marco and the Doge's Palace. Venice was once an important trade center. Here, traders from Europe and the Orient met each other. Due to contact with the East, the city became acquainted with the technique of glass blowing. This technique was refined by the Venetians and made the city world famous over the past centuries. Even now, there are many glass blowers in the city, especially on the island of Murano. In small cellars at the water's edge, glass is worked in minute detail. The technique of glass blowing is probably 4,000 years old. The Phoenicians were the first to start it. Later, the Egyptians followed, and also the inhabitants of the Roman Empire. Producing a glass or vase takes years of experience. To be able to work the glass properly, it must be at the right temperature. A small mistake means starting from the beginning. The Venetians are very skilled. They make pieces of art that would not look out of place between the porcelain and crystal of the Orient Express. As far as luxury is concerned, a train without comparison.